Hi, BookTube. It's Lindsay and Winnie. She's staring out the window here at this really pretty summer day. It's like, I think 95 degrees, so it's hot with not a cloud in the sky. Yesterday we had an unexpected rainstorm, which was weird. We don't normally get thunderstorms here. It's more of like a Midwest or a Southern, Eastern thing to get thunderstorms. But yeah, it was really nice to like look at the lightning flash by. A nice little treat. I know some people like, because when I used to live in Virginia, we got them all summer long, and it was just like a old hat kind of thing. Like, you're so used to experiencing it, but here it's like it's like a new excitement. One second, my cat's gonna knock over. Right, there she goes. Yeah, because she was gonna knock over the phone. She has to smell everything and like rub against all the corners. So I know, yeah, it would go away. It would not go away. So I'm here today to talk about the books I read this previous week, from last Sunday to this Saturday. So the first book, and it's all in a chronological order. The first book I got to was Fall Back Down When I Die by Joe Wilkins. And I love this cover because it's set in Montana. And there's all these wolves all along the cover, which is really interesting with like pine trees. And and it looks like there's a gun right here. Because that's part of the culture there as well. And this follows Wendell Newman is his name, and he has some struggles. He lives in a very small town in rural Montana, and he kind of gets stuck with a nephew because his sister gets sent to jail, and so he's already struggling himself, but then he gets stuck with a nephew who is like on the autistic spectrum. He doesn't really speak that much. He knows how to speak, but he's very like introverted and really has a hard time reaching out and communicating with people. And so he focuses on Wendell, who is like the new dad of sorts, and then it's also the boy's name is Rowdy, and so he goes into a school, tries to, and so the teacher is another focus. It doesn't have her name here. I can't remember her name, but I'm horrible with names. But the teacher is also a main focus in the book because she is from kind of like the other side of the tracks. She's from Billings, Montana, and so which is like a big city in Montana, and so she is used to more, I don't know, like white collar things, and so Rowdy and Wendell are very, very blue collar. Like they struggle. Like Wendell struggles with work, and he hunts to provide food on the table, and he has a lot of like canned food because he doesn't make a lot of trips to the grocery store. And so anyway, so it's this like dual perspective of the teacher who is from Billings and is trying to bring the city life into this small rural school to help the students, because she notices a lot of them kind of fall into the tracks of their parents, how they don't break out and move to the city or go to college, that kind of thing. So she's really trying to help the students. And so her struggle with kind of like fighting the parents and also fighting the kids, because the kids, instead of following the teacher, they're going to listen to their parents. And so there's some conflict there. And it was a really interesting book. It has that really good vibe of, I feel like a true vibe of kind of like what the Montana lifestyle could possibly be. And this next book I read was one I've done a full review of, so I won't talk about it too much. It's Betsy Was a Junior by Maud Hart Lovelace. And this is the 7th book in the series. And this one is when she's a junior, obviously, in high school. And as I mentioned before, this wasn't my favorite of the series. This probably was my least favorite just because I didn't feel like we got much new in the story. I mean, yes, we got Tib back, which is one of the girls in the trio of this friend group. She came back, which was nice. But yeah, she was very boy crazy, but she did at the end really like learn her lesson of wanting to focus on school and work and writing instead of being boy crazy or socializing too much. So I'm hoping she'll mature in the future books. And talk about maturity. This next book is really cute. The cover itself is really cute. It's a manga. Can't pronounce this. It's Yutsuba. The first one. And so it's like a little girl. I think she's like 5 years old. And it's by Kiyohiko Azuma. We'll go with that one. And so she is, I think, 5 years old. And she gets moved to this new town. And it's all about her encountering all sorts of new things. Like, for example, I'm not sure where she's from, what village is. She's from like a small village or what. but the apartment she moves into has an air conditioning, and she is so confused. What is this air conditioning? She goes to a neighbor's house and like sees them like pushing buttons and turning on. She's like, wow, it's so cold in here. And it was really her funny. All of her, so the whole book is her interactions, like her first experiences, and her wrong assumptions of all sorts of things. And so yeah, it was a really cute story. This next one is a history nonfiction book, Chasing New Horizons Inside the Epic First Mission to Pluto by Alan Stern and David Grinspoon. And here's a picture of Pluto. And I don't know if this hopefully picks it up. In the book they talk about this heart, which is like half of it's white and half of it's blue, but actually it makes a heart, which is like one of the first spots that they saw when they were taking pictures. And so this is all about the journey of how not only the satellite, how did it go from Earth to Pluto, and all the different things that could have gone wrong, that did go wrong, and not just that, but it was just how did we form a plan to even make the satellite. There was a lot of politics involved where people didn't want to put it was like limited funds, and they didn't want to put the money towards exploring Pluto. They wanted to use it for studying like Saturn's moons or Jupiter's moons, all sorts of stuff. There's so much to explore in space that it was like a big debate and a battle over who got the money. And then not only that, once they decided to go to Pluto, then it was okay, which group is going to build the satellite? And it was this group that Alan Stern was a part of. What was the name? Does it have the name of their group? I can't remember. It's the same with like name of people. I can't remember like little code names. But anyway, this group that Alan Stern was a part of, they were fighting this like bigger, well-known name in NASA of building a satellite. And so Alan's group won because they were very innovative in finding budgets and how to, instead of having this massive group of people involved in developing and working on the satellite and like maintaining it on its journey, like monitoring on the computers where it's at in space, he decided to get a really small group, and that saved a lot of money, having less man hours involved. And so all sorts of things that they were finding ways of not cutting corners, but finding ways to decrease waste. And so yeah, that was really interesting, that whole battle, kind of like the politics of NASA, because I don't really know much about. I know NASA, and I know like some of the things that they are involved in and that they produce, and we see we reap the benefits of seeing all sorts of things online and in the news. But I'm kind of like in the dark with how these things come about, like who are making these decisions, and like the debate that they're in, which was very interesting. And so yeah, I'm gonna be looking online for this satellite. What's it? Now it's past Pluto. What's it gonna see in the future? As it goes on. And Pluto is, let's see if it had it on here, because I just read it a second ago. But okay. Anyway, sorry. I can't remember the distance, but it was something like 3 billion miles away or something like that to Pluto. And so yeah, there's a lot of pictures in this book. The copy I was reading was an ebook, and so I didn't have colors. But yeah, it's such an interesting planet with like the red, the white, the blue, and they were surprised because a lot of the telescopes that they were using here on Earth were, you couldn't pick up the colors because it's so far away that they're thinking, oh, it's just like going to be a dull, like kind of like the moon, like all one tone, and it's going to be barren, and but it's really interesting. There's a lot of when they zoom in on this planet, there's a lot of like craters and mountains and ice and like methane and all sorts of atmospheres. And then it's also the moon, Charon, instead of like the moon or like how Earth, the moon revolves around the Earth. In this one, it's like a binary planet where Pluto and the moon, its moon, Charon, are like going, crossing each other. They're rotating this way. That's what I want to say. And so it also has 4 smaller moons besides the big Charon. So Charon is 10% of the size of Pluto, which is a significant size. The 4 smaller moons are like, instead of being circular, they're like kind of like long, like oblong or oval shapes. They're like this, which was really interesting. They've never seen moons like that. But yeah, it's such a fascinating read. So yeah, and then the next book is another nonfiction. This one I listened to on audio. It was narrated by Bronson Pinchot, and it's The Wizard and the Prophet, two remarkable scientists and their dueling visions to shape tomorrow's world. And I'll show you the cover of that one, and it's by Charles C. Mann, and it's author of 1491. And this is all about like the two conflicting opinions on how to save the planet, like use our resources, our natural resources. And it's let's see, one second, let me because I want to pull up the description of the wizards and the prophets. But on one group, the wizards, you have like they want to use our technology in order. Tucker, sorry, one second. My dog is like licking the carpet. I'm not sure what he's doing. Tucker. Anyway, you might hear some licking in the background. So the wizards use natural resources like to the best of our ability, and then the prophets want to minimize our resources. So the wizards want to keep advancing technology to find a solution on trying to eliminate climate change as much as possible, where the prophets want to conserve. And so it was a really interesting book, like seeing those two different opinions on climate change. Like they both have the same goal, but it's like how we get there. So like, for example, like electricity, the prophets want to minimize and limit the amount of electricity we all have access to, or they want us to instill it in ourselves to use the least amounts possible, whereas the wizards want to find innovative ways to create more energy. So I think a combination of the two would be ideal. So yeah, it was a really interesting book with climate change. And this next one was another nonfiction. It was a comic book or graphic novel. It's March, book 1. It's about John Lewis, and it's Andrew Aiden and Nate Powell. And this is the first book in a trilogy, I believe, and it's all about Congressman John Lewis. And this one focuses on a time when he was growing up in Alabama and how he became acquaintances with Martin Luther King and with the civil rights movement. He grew up on a small farm, like a chicken farm. He took care of the chickens, and he wanted to be a preacher. He practiced being a preacher by preaching sermons to the chickens, which I thought was really neat. And so yeah, if you want to learn more about history and civil rights, then this graphic novel will be perfect for that. And then this last book is a book in a series, it's Wheel of Time, the third book, The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. And here's that cover with this famous part. There's a big plot in this book with this sword called Calendar, but I won't give the story away with that. But in this one, I like it because Rand is this guy in the picture is one of the main characters of the 3 boys from a village who make their way out into the world. But in this book, you don't get his voice much. Like, you don't get chapters focusing on him from his perspective. You get little snippets of where he's through the book. Like, he's camping here, he's in this town. So you get an idea of where he's going, but you don't get his voice. But instead, you get the 2 other characters, Matt and Perrin. You get really advanced their storyline, which I really like, because Matt is like this funny gambler who's taking risks, and he's just a hoot. I love him. And then Perrin, he, I don't get anything away with him, but yeah, he's struggling internally with the changes that are in his life, and kind of coming to terms with them, and how he's not living in a small town being a blacksmith anymore. So yeah, that's all I want to give away with this book, since it's in a series. But yeah, these are all the books I read this week. Let me know if you've read any of them, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, BookTube.